Welcome to the February 19th meeting of the Glenville Town Board. Please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Please join me in prayer. Dear Lord, we come to you this hour asking for your blessing and help as we gather together. We pray for your guidance in the matters at hand and ask that you would clearly show us how to conduct our work with a spirit of joy and enthusiasm. Help us to work together and encourage each other to excel. We ask that we would challenge each other to reach higher and farther, to be the best we can be. And we ask this in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Councilman Martin?
Here.
Councilman Pitlevani?
Here.
Let the record show Councilman Ramatari is absent. Councilwoman Rosbowski? Here. Supervisor Ketzler?
Here. We have a relatively light agenda, but we will go to an executive session after we're done with item number 11, which is new business. We don't anticipate coming out and conducting any more public business, so you're free to stay if you like, but I wouldn't suggest it because we really don't anticipate anything happening after that executive session. That executive session is to discuss contract negotiations. So at the end of that meeting, we will move to executive session. With that, I'll start with town council reports, and I'll start on my left with Councilwoman Rosowski.
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, just a couple things. First, we'd just like to ask the residents to remind them if they have a hydrant that is in front of their home. I think we're probably trying to go around clear them out at this point, but if you have one near your home and you have a minute and you could try to clear it out, it could save your home or someone else's should there be a fire. Additionally, in connection with all of this that we've received, I would really like to extend a very heartfelt thank you to all of our employees who worked many hours away from their homes, away from their families, try and keep our roads safe and clear. I know that, sometimes it may seem like your neighborhood isn't plowed as quickly as it usually is, but we've had quite a lot of snow in a very short period of time, and they do the best they can and they get there as quickly as they can, and sometimes things break and they have to stop and fix it. So I think they do a fine job, and I would just like to thank them publicly for all that they do for the town.
You're here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And that's it.
Councilor Martin.
Yeah, just briefly, planning has started for the upcoming April event, Let's Talk Business event. The initial save the date email blast went out. That date is, I believe it is April 24th, Thursday afternoon, and it's going to be at Riverstone this time. So all are encouraged to attend, and more details will follow.
Thank you. Councilman Pitlevani.
Mr. Supervisor, I attended the DARE Advisory Board meeting last week, and Officer Dunbar, of course, for the Town of Glenville Police Department, is starting the DARE program in Pasture School, either this week or next week, and we were getting together, starting our preparation for our DARE golf tournament, which will be the first Saturday in June, which is the major and only fundraiser for the DARE program for the town.
First Saturday in June?
First Saturday in June, I think it's 6th maybe.
Okay.
7th, okay.
Thank you. One of the things I was going to ask you and the chief to maybe think about is I've received, and I know Councilman Rosbowski received a couple comments about DARE not being done in a few of the schools because of the family leave with the officermen. One of the issues is there seems to be a prevailing belief that the town had stepped back from the program, and that's really not the case. And I don't know if there's a way of communicating with the school or communicating with the parents that there was a family leave situation. It wasn't that we're stepping away from it, but I did receive quite a few emails about it, and it was kind of geared towards, I'm sorry the town isn't investing in this anymore, and that's really not the case.
I'm surprised you would hear it now. Glen Warden and Glendale are typically done in the fall, which is when the DARE officer had family leave, so they weren't done. Now that he's back, he's doing Pashley, which he normally did in the spring. I'm surprised that there wasn't any communication or any complaints in the fall.
Well, there were two.
But they certainly are intending to do it again in the fall at Glenmore and Glenville.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 5, which is privilege of the floor. I don't have anyone that's signed up for privilege of the floor. Anyone wish to speak at privilege of the floor, sir? We just ask you to go to the podium and state your name and address the board.
Thank you. My name is Pete Looker, L-O-O-K-E-R, on Looks. I live at 1965 Amsterdam Road. I'm here basically to deliver a petition from 18 of my neighbors requesting that we immediately enforce the town zoning ordinance about light glare trespass from Old Dominion Trucking, the new terminal that went in there. The ordinance says the glare, direct or indirect from floodlights, shall be confined to the property, and it's clearly not confined from the property. In fact, if you're coming from Amsterdam, before you go onto the railroad bridge, you will be getting what's much more powerful than any headlights I've ever seen. It's not safe, and we can now sit in our bedroom with the lights off and we can read the paper. It's a bit much. It's about 20-fold what they put down in their original plans that they were going to do. And it's not brain surgery, it's simple, do a little diagram here of how they're supposed to do it. And basically, anybody that has shades on their lights in their room understand how you put this over this and then you don't get the glare from it. And I really appreciate that be pushed. The second part of that is that we're concerned that the new facility in the old tank farm is going to do the same damn thing. And it's not really a fun thing. I realize it may potentially save us money because it definitely, while the intent of the law was to have no significant impact on environmental, visual, or reduction in property values, I think there's a good point could be made that now our property values in that 25-house neighborhood have been reduced, and if they don't get that off of there, it's been almost a month now. So that's pretty much what I have to say, and I'll leave you the petition.
Please do, and I have been working with the building inspector on this issue for Central. As I understand it, my last update from Paul was that they had, he reached out to them and they agreed to make some modification that will mitigate this problem. I don't have in my head right now exactly what it was, but it appears in my discussion with Paul that it might be something not unsimilar to this. But I know we're making progress with that.
We just like progress to the point of no glare at all.
Yeah, and we'll make sure that I talk to Paul about this and we'll stay on it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard for privilege of the floor? Anyone else? Seeing none, privilege of the floor is now closed. Before we do supervisors' comments to the board, I'd like to take a quick opportunity. We have a special guest with us here today who would like to make a special presentation. So I'd like to call Lorraine Deere up to the podium, if you wouldn't mind. And together, Lorraine, we can...
I'm here again, people.
She's here again, see?
You can help me a little bit.
I will help you. And what we'd like to do tonight is Lorraine, as you all recall, the board, Lorraine made some special awards for us in recognition of the work we've done. And in talking to Lorraine, I think Lorraine felt that there was one employee we had in particular that might be interested or deserving of this award as well. And we all know this employee has spent many years working for the town of Glenville in many different capacities. But we all know that this gentleman has helped this board in particular with all the work that we do. He's been such an important part to the leadership of this town. He certainly has made this board, and made our jobs easier and helped with the success that we've had over the past 4 years. And I think Lorraine has recognized that and would like to recognize this gentleman for all his work and for his 27 years of service to the town. We'd like to recognize Jamie McFarland. Come on up, Jamie.
My fan club is here.
Okay.
I've known Jamie for quite a while.
Yes, and you've done this for a number of people in our senior center also. So now that I'm a senior, then I also can have one.
I do it for relatives, I do it for
Oh.
the church.
Okay.
Oh, the bishop sent me a thank you letter today because of what I do. Somebody squealed on me. And I says, oh my gosh, I feel wonderful. Made my day.
Very nice.
Now,
Oh my.
Oh, wow. That's very nice. You want to present it to him?
yes, you presented to him. or something. Yep.
Okay. So this, Jamie, is, it reads, Jamie McFarland has served this town for over 27 years and was the Director of Human Services before he was appointed Deputy Supervisor. In that time, he has helped build our parks by working on our sports fields and nature trail system. Jamie has also worked on our senior center to provide the senior citizens of our town with the best services possible. Signed, Christopher A. Ketzley. Excellent. There you go, Jamie.
Very nice. Well,
Congratulations.
thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
Good job.
It's a picture that I was surprised to see in the paper not that long ago. Thank you. This is very nice. Is it nicer than all the ones that the rest of the people got?
They're all equally beautiful.
All right. Hoping for, one little one-upsmanship there.
Okay, you go sit down now.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
Is there something?
Two today.
Who's this to?
See that?
Is this to Jim? No, who's this to?
That's because he was in the Olympics.
Oh.
Say, because it's Olympic time.
Oh, yes.
It's
yes.
Olympic, yeah, it's time for you to also receive this one, Jim.
Just
Oh,
one,
my
two. Come on up, Jamie, for the Olympics.
All right.
Just think about the Olympics.
Okay, so this is from Lorraine Deer, and it's titled Days to Remember, and it was about the article that was in the paper on, just recently, I don't see a date here.
Yeah.
A dream denied. Unfortunately, Jamie was one of the best volleyball players in the area apparently, and unfortunately the boycott prevented him from going to Russia, Moscow, and it's unfortunate, but here's something that commemorates your great work on that, Jamie. Congratulations.
Well, thank you for this also.
Thank
And another hug, of course. We wouldn't want to miss that.
you.
Well, thank you very much. This is very thoughtful of you, Lorraine.
Okay.
Much appreciated. And Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Jamie. Still got it? Can you still jump?
Well, yeah, actually.
See, I took your computer, know that, 'cause I worked on that like 4 weeks ago.
No, wait a surprise.
Yeah.
Did I turn that?
All right, so for the supervisor's comments to the board, I have a few, but I'll try to keep them pretty brief. Councilwoman Rosbowski, I agree 100% with what she said about our road crew. I had the opportunity to ride as a wingman, as I know you've done in the past, on one of the routes, and there's a lot more than people think that go into it, and I think I did a pretty good job. I think town might want to recruit me if I ever retire from this position at some point, but it was an interesting experience, to say the least. Just real quick, updates on a few things that I and some members of the board had an opportunity to tour. I think you were all invited to tour the social building. It was a winter storm that day, and unfortunately not everyone could make it, but it's really coming along nicely. And if you still want to do it, I think you did it with
I did,
Stacy.
yes, I went on there.
Yeah. You can do it individually. He's doing them basically on Wednesdays. We can arrange it if you want to arrange it through my office and his. But the restaurant area looks beautiful already, and it's just going to be a really stellar building. But we're getting close, I think, this spring to having some announcements about what's going in there. So that's good news. I had a chance to attend the Capital Region District Delegation lunch regarding our legislative agenda. I've talked to you before about the legislative agenda, but just really quick, I wanted to point out a few things we hit on with our state legislators that are important to towns. This is through the Association of Towns and the Center for Economic Growth. Mandate relief was the first thing we talked about. And unfortunately, some of our state legislators have a different idea as to what mandates are and how they should be paid for. So that's that we have ahead of us. One of the things we try to hit on is that publications of legal notices should no longer be required in newspapers. In today's day and age, we feel that posting it electronically on a webpage would suffice and would save us a significant amount of money. Right now, we spend a lot of money whenever there's a local law proposed, or we enact a local law, or we put a request for bid, or hold a public hearing. Among other municipal actions, we need to post that in the newspaper. It's quite expensive for us. We talked about abandoned property and how mortgage companies that are foreclosing on these properties should be forced to contact us and make sure they tell us who they are and how we can get a hold of them in case there's a problem with the property. We, of course, in this town have something similar to that, but this would have more teeth being a statewide law, so we've been advocating for that. Pension reform. This group supports the state to reinstate the 3% employee pension contribution that was eliminated in 2000 for Tier 3 and 4 members of the state retirement system, because we see that as a cost shift from employees to the taxpayers, and that if you're in the system and you're working towards this nice pension at the end, you should continue to put into it. They point out here that our local government's 2005 contribution rates are 7% higher than our 2013 rates, and that 90% higher than they were 40 years ago as far as municipalities go on that. So pension reform was important. Increase of AIM funding, which is funding to the municipalities, aid from the state, which has stayed pretty stagnant over the years. One of the ones I think, Jim, you and I would be interested in particular, increase opportunities for small projects in the consolidated funding application process so that not all the CFA money goes to large transformational projects, but also some of these smaller projects that can have an impact, but aren't very competitive when they're stacked up against bigger projects. So those are some of the things that we, among others, and I have this another copy in my office if anyone wants it, and we can talk about our efforts. I have another meeting coming up at the end of February to continue our efforts in that area. I had a UCC meeting a couple weeks ago. From what we're hearing on the UCC effort, they are looking to take our dispatchers by Memorial Day. They're pretty solid in that, although I have heard that their labor negotiations have stalled, and I don't know, they're behind schedule now on that. I don't know how that affects the rest of their schedule. We should see a budget from the county to the municipalities by mid-March. That was the promise they gave me, so that we'll get a first look in mid-March. If we like that budget, we'll have to adopt that budget. We would have to then do budget amendments, so we'd have to eliminate our lines for dispatch, collapse that, and then put in the county line for what it will cost us for the rest of 2014. Going forward. So we should see that in March, and they would ask by April that we would have that resolution passed if we were going to go forward with it. The court consolidation issue, we've all watched that unfold, unfortunately, in the paper fairly quickly. It was a good effort. I still think there was a merit to it. I think the village, and I'll be frank about this, it was in the article, I think the village pulled out way too quick. I think they didn't really look at it seriously. I think they tried to pin a lot of it on maybe some of the concerns the town raised. We certainly did have concerns, and you and I talked about it, John, but I didn't think there was anything, and I never think there's anything that we can't overcome if we just figure out a way. So, you know, some of the issues were space problems and parking problems and how long court night might go or what nights court night might be on, but there was nothing logistically there that was a deal killer without really looking at it. So, sad to say, but that consolidation effort seems to be dead again from the village point of view. So that's where we are with that. Recently, I've been speaking with developers regarding a variety of options for development in the town. Dick Eustace, Jim, Kevin, and I have been focused on trying to work with a few national chain restaurants for certain areas here in town center and Freeman's Bridge Road. We had meetings set up through February, and hopefully we'll have some progress on that front. But it's looking very positive. People are looking at Glenville very seriously, where before they haven't just a couple of years ago. So I think that's very good news. Gina and I had the opportunity to be guest servers at the Glenville Pasta Dinner. was an excellent time. It was well attended.
The Rotary. Right?
What did I say?
Glenville pasta dinner.
Yeah, the Rotary.
Rotary, right?
Yes, the Rotary. Yeah, Glenville Rotary.
Pasta dinner.
You're right. Gotta get the Rotary in there. And I appreciate you. I put a last minute call out for help because they were short, and you did phenomenal.
It was fun.
I had an opportunity to take part in the Scotia Glenville, Scotia Theater project. So what Peter Russo is trying to launch here in town is a shop local effort, working with your brother Bill, on showing, before movies, showing the great aspects of Glenville and Scotia, and then asking local businesses to buy advertisement space like you would see across gates for a big company. We're doing it for our local companies here. So it sounds like a great program, and they launched it the other day. We went to the premiere. There was no red carpet, but I did get free popcorn, and I love popcorn, so it was a really good time. Pictures were great, John, too, to tell you about it. Kevin and I had an opportunity to meet with representatives from the DEC related to the plume that seems to be growing or moving on Freeman's Bridge Road. We met on a variety of issues down there because it has been a hindrance to development, and it is starting to infringe on Sunnyview Gardens. There's a water supply issue. I think some residents have spoken to all of us about it, that we're going to have to deal with this spring, so we're starting to work with DEC a little more closely on that. There's some positive news on that front, and there's also some things that DEC is trying to get done in the legislature that would be helpful to getting it cleaned up. And one of them is a voluntary program where if someone came forward to clean it up voluntarily, the state would hold them harmless for any future liability. That right now is not authorized in legislation, and DEC is trying to get it authorized, and I think this is a perfect site that would benefit from that, so we might help with that one as well. Speaking of DEC, Steve Hammond has done a great job in leading our efforts to coordinate a meeting with them regarding the town's concern as it relates to protecting our water fields and water supply. We have an agenda mapped out that we're going to be talking with them about the wellfield protection stuff that we all saw late last year, mid-late last year. So we're moving forward with that with DEC.
DEC is the one that would approve the mining permit too, correct?
Yes, that's part of the meeting.
That's part of it.
In fact. A few more quick things. We're going to take up a resolution tonight, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, on Microsoft, the XP. John, you probably know better than me. We talked about it last week at the work session. Microsoft's no longer supporting the XP with security patches, so we're going to have to do a conversion into new computers, and we'll get into that tonight. As far as in the resolution is what's budgeted, what's not budgeted, what it's going to cost, but it's really important because we will be unprotected very shortly in the next couple of weeks. The security patches will not be updated. I do want to touch on two important things, actually just three quick important things. The Amador project, it's a large project. I've gotten a lot of emails, as you probably have as well. We saw last week what the turnout was. We've heard from a number of residents on it. We don't have to go through it tonight, and we'll put it on the website, but a lot of people are just a little confused on the process, what's going on with how this stuff is going to unfold. So Kevin put together a nice multi-bulleted process here that we'll put on the website, and we'll give it to residents as it unfolds. Really, though, people need to understand that the process is it's going to planning and zoning at some point. There are legally required to hold public hearings. That's a time for residents to have their input into that commission. They're required to do one. They don't have to do a public hearing at the preliminary, but they do it by the final. But we're going to ask the planning and zoning commission to do one also at the preliminary, so people have, just as we did when we did the supervisors thing, we gave people multiple opportunities at a public hearing. So I'm going to be talking to Chairman Carr and asking him to hold two public hearings, and of course, they always have an opportunity to come here to the board, but we don't have a really big say in this. We have a few things that we'll be dealing with as they come up. The road profile is one of them, and maybe a few other things, but this is really a planning and zoning commission project, and that's where I think most of the residents should focus most of their comments. And finances, real quickly. We have good news, which is always nice. We have a projected surplus to end 2013 in our general fund of $260,000 without using any of the $268,000 that was appropriated in fund balance. The highlights there are that our mortgage tax finished higher, about $228,000 more than we budgeted, but they were really one-shots, big projects that happened over the course of 2013, so don't count on that and happening again. And I'll also touch on some problems with 2014. Our court revenue ended up $16,000 above budget, which is good news and bad news, I guess. More people breaking the law. Expense highlights, both the supervisor and the comptroller budgets were under budget by $20,000 each. And the issues in this fund to worry about, because it's nice to get good news, but we got to look at what's ahead. Mortgage revenues for 2014 are down considerably through the last 4 months, October through January. I think we're going to be hard pressed to hit our 2014 budgeted revenue of $675,000. I was concerned about mortgage tax revenue falling, and I think we're going to see that some more. I think the refis are long done, and we're going to have to rely on sales now, in my estimation. That's going to be a challenge. And negotiating the 3 contracts. The town outside fund, the B fund, we have a surplus of $220,000. Franchise fees are down from Time Warner Cable, and with Comcast buying them and with us having an expired contract, I don't know where that's going, so that's kind of a wild card. And of course, in this fund, we use cash to purchase the 2 police cars in 2013 and then 2014. And police overtime in 2013 dropped slightly from 2012, but it's still totaled $254,000, which is their 4-year average, which is about $256,000 over the last 4 years. So it's still up there. It's not going any higher, but so that's good news and bad news. And then the highway fund is doing well, except for we bought the front loader or whatever. We paid cash for it. And so that, we would have had a surplus, but because we paid cash for that, there's going to be a little bit of a deficit in that fund. But it's only because we paid cash for that front loader. So there's good news on the finance fund. And we can go into more detail on that. I know Jason's going to be getting out some numbers shortly to you for year-end numbers. And then lastly, I just wanted to address the GECC retasking proposal. We went over this at the last work session, but in that time, there was some confusion as to what was being proposed. And what I think is important to know, and I'd like to address just quickly, a couple things that the newspaper made seem like was going on is, number one, there's no MGM grant coming into Glenville. There's nothing like that being proposed. There's no huge project that's on the boards right now that we're trying to circumvent anything. Nothing like that is happening. What we're trying to do is retest the GECC to do what they originally intended to do, which was to drive environmental policy for the town. So we're trying to give them, from our strategic plan, more things to do. Kevin looked at all of our sister communities. In most of those communities, this is what the the ECC does. The G is the Glenville. The environmental conservation committees do that in most of these towns. We still would benefit from their insight on larger projects. We're not proposing that we wouldn't look at the environmental review through them on the larger projects, but on the smaller projects, and I said in my memo to you, 90% of what goes through to them doesn't apply to them, and they have no input on it. The secret process will continue to happen. That does not change. The environmental review does not change. The only thing changes is the GECC will not initiate it, the Planning and Zoning Commission will now initiate it. It's the only change. All we're trying to do is free up, we're trying to make a shorter time for the developer to get through the process and still make sure there's integrity in the system. We're trying to not waste the GECC's time and give them something more relevant to do. And we're still trying to make sure environmental review is happening. So I wanted to touch on that because I think there needs to be some clarification. People are a little bit confused as to what's being proposed on that. Sorry, long report, probably longer than the meeting's going to take, and I apologize for that. But Sid's not here, so he's not giving me stairs to hurry up and get off. Any questions or comments?
I would just like to point out for the record that that cartoon that came out about the proposal to redefine the GECC's role, the Gazette didn't even cover that story, so, you know, I think it's pretty irresponsible of a paper that's supposed to be the town's newspaper to not send reporters to meetings to get the facts, to report them appropriately, and then to put a derogatory cartoon about a process that we take very seriously in the first place. I just think that's really irresponsible, and I was really irritated by that. I understand in politics you're going to get that, but they didn't even cover the story. They didn't ask us questions. They just, you know, pulled that out of their hat, and I guess they must think it's funny to try to belittle things that we're trying to do to make the town better. But I was not happy about that at all.
Well, as you see, we have no report.
Again.
You're not from these, are you? So you're the only one that, they're not covering anything.
Again, yes.
And they never called to ask one question.
No?
Not one question. They just drew a cartoon.
I just want to know how many mailboxes Wingman Ketzley got on his route.
Absolutely none when I did it. All the call and complaints came in afterwards. I noticed that.
Well, so you didn't see him get it.
He didn't tell you he went up to the half-inch snowstorm that day.
It's called plausible deniability.
I want to echo Gina's
sorry.
comments on the GECC. I think that was a particularly disingenuous, cheap shot, and I don't know where that comes from. I'm at a loss. You know, the process here is taken very seriously. The role of those volunteers, I go to those meetings, is taken very seriously. It's inexplicable.
It's unfortunate. I wish they were here to cover this. So if done with the supervisor's comments to the board, and I would like to move on to resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Works to purchase a new van. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this resolution is to replace one of the water department's vans for a 2014 FE350 van on OGS contract award pricing. Therefore, it's not necessary to go through a formal bid process at this time. Sufficient funds are available for the purchase in the 2014 budget. That's where the funds will be coming from. So this resolution would be to approve and authorize the Commissioner of Public Works to purchase one new 2014 Ford E350 from Webster Ford Inc., DBA Henderson Ford, 810 Ridge Road, Webster, New York, and so not to exceed $23,500. And that's what the resolution is.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Kettelbach?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, resolution 8, authorizing the comptroller to purchase new computers. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second. This is what I kind of referred to in the supervisor's report. There are approximately 35 computers running Microsoft XP right now for the town, and I think that's indicative of the fact that we may not have always invested in new technology the way we should have over the years. But we're starting to. Microsoft will cease supporting this system on April 8th. And when that happens, we will not have a secure, supported operating system for the town's network, and we can't have that. So Repeat Business Systems, our town's technology vendor, has advised us that it would be best to replace the computers running XP, all 35 of them, which will be fairly expensive. We do have about 10 budgeted for 2014 to be replaced, so we do have some of the money in the budget. Here, I think it's spelled out that we have $19,000 in the budget, and that we would need to appropriate a fund balance of $19,000. That's not right.
We have 10 in the budget.
10 in the budget, and we would have to appropriate 19 additional, 19.5 outside the fund balance to cover this. The upside of this is that we will then have less to spend in future years on a rolling investment in new technology, because really what we try to do is spend that $10,000 each year to try to buy new things. These will all be new, but just like the plows and just like the police cars, we have to really get on a rolling basis with our technology a little more aggressively. So I think the first step is let's get our safe, secure computers. Microsoft 7 Pro is what we will be buying. I guess 8 didn't get good reviews by our resident expert here at the end, so we're gonna go with 7 Pro. And then I think we need a plan of how we're gonna continue to invest in technology, so we're not, stuck with outdated computers, things like this. So, will there be any value to the computers that we're getting rid of? Probably not, because no one wants.
Not much, because it has the XP. Now, that's why our tech people told us to just buy new computers, that the boxes are too old to bother putting on a new operating system, reinstalling everything, and then a year later, you gotta fix them, replace the machine.
So, what do you do? Just surplus them and?
Yeah, we can. There are some recyclers that will take them, and we might get a couple of shekels on them.
Okay. Sounds like we need to do it. So, any questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pedlavani?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 9, approving departmental monthly reports. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion, changes, deletions?
No, pretty self-explanatory. It's for the departmental reports for January.
Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pedlavani?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski? Yes. Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution approving the town board minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this is the motion to approve the minutes of the regular meetings held on November 6, 2013, and November 20th, 2013.
Thank you. Any changes, deletions, edits? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
I'll abstain as I was not here.
Councilman Pedlavani?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution barely passes, and just barely enough to get through that. We'll start with new business on my left with Councilwoman Wozzachowski.
No new business, Mr. Supervisor.
New business, Councilman Martin.
No new business.
Councilman Pillavani.
No new
And
business.
I have no new business, so we will entertain a motion to go into executive session. Any motion?
So moved.
Seconded?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Again, we're going to talk about personnel matters, or I'm sorry, negotiations. You're welcome to stay, but no business to be conducted afterwards. Do I have a motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? An executive session.